Welcome to all Caribbean entrepreneurs. If you've been ready and waiting to take your business digital and get paid online while you sip something strong on the beach, this podcast is for you. We'll hear from the Caribbean's finest entrepreneurs on topics like e-commerce, business development, brand building, social media, their wins and failures. This is the only place in the region helping you navigate the digital age from the Caribbean's perspective. This is Digipreneur FM. And now, let's give it up for the Digiboss himself, Mr. Karan Rose.
Thank you to everybody tuning in to another episode of the Digipreneur FM podcast. And as usual, it is your boy, Mr. Rose. And we are back. So DJ, you know what to do. You gotta fade us all the way out because we gotta talk to the people. November 15th, 2022. This is episode number 110. Whew, it's been a little while. It's been almost 2 weeks since our last episode. My goodness, where have you been? We've been missing you, Digiboss. Where did you go? Why did you leave us? What's been going on with you? Well, folks, it has been a busy last 12 days. It has been hectic. If you guys follow me over on social media at Karan Rose, KeronRosc. If you guys follow me over on social media, if you guys check out, my Instagram stories and whatnot, you guys would know that, last week and a bit has definitely been busy. You guys would have known that I was in Jamaica a few weeks ago. Oh my God, feels like forever, and it feels like yesterday at the same time. But you guys know I was in Jamaica not a little while ago. Had fun over there, and I came back, and then guess what? The big boss, my homegirl, Dr. Terry Carell Reed, Alex Sterling, and my guy, Jermaine Duncan, photographer, they came down for the Caribbean Investment Forum last week, and they were here for a week. So it was just between all of the work that I do, events, workshops, meetings. From there, after that, evening times was pretty much spent with the crew from Jamaica, with my Yachty crew, and just trying to ensure that they have a good time, make sure that they got to, enjoy all of Trinidad's delicacies. And overall, just spending some great time. Oh, my guy Lauren Pert from Blue Dot is out here too. I met a lot of good people that came down for the Caribbean Investment Forum. While I particularly did not go, I had my own things going on. I was still able to pop in and again just meet a lot of people that did fly in for it. So it was really, really good from that perspective. And listen, last week was just hectic. Like, I did not really do, outside of like stories and whatnot, I didn't do too much content by way of podcasts or blogs and whatnot. It was just, if you follow me on social media, you got some social media content. I still have my news article. I still have the radio show. So again, all of those things are things that kind of took me away from, just getting in front of the microphone and shooting a podcast, right? So forgive me, folks. I'll try not to leave you for so long ever again. What's interesting too, right, is since the pandemic hit, before the pandemic hit, I had like my tech setup was I had my MacBook Pro, I got my microphone, and I had things that I was able to be mobile, right? But then the pandemic hit, because I started to do a lot more live streaming. My MacBook Pro the battery used to run down before my live streams would finish, and the charger just wasn't powerful enough to charge it whilst running all of the equipment. So I ended up selling it and getting an iMac. So like my entire setup right now is very, very stationary. And now that the world has opened back up and I'm on the move a lot more, I only have my iPad to work with. The problem is that I don't do any work from my iPad other than media and typing documents or typing emails. I don't really do any work. All right. And so I just bought back a MacBook Pro. That way I could be mobile so I could do work. And that's going to help me tremendously because I know going into 2023, where I'm going to be on the road a lot more, I'm going to be traveling a lot more, I need to be able to pump out all forms of work and all forms of content while I'm on the go. So like I'm building a mobile kit, right? So I just bought back the MacBook Pro, just waiting for it to come back, just waiting for it to come in. I'll have my microphone. I'll have everything I will need to be able to podcast on the road. So if I'm at a hotel, if I'm out of country, or maybe if I'm just not home and I'm on the road or whatnot, it'll be easier for me to pump out a podcast episode rather than always having to be at home and be in the back cave cooking up my podcast or doing anything else. So that's one thing I've had to address now that I'm seeing, okay, we're really going to be on the road a lot more, whether it be in conferences, meetings, just away from home or out of the country. So I've had to get back into investing into that. So enough about that. What are we here for today? What are we here for today? Well, today's episode, we are going to be talking about how culture impacts marketing. How culture impacts marketing. Culture gives your marketing context. Culture gives your marketing direction. All right? And this episode started because we all follow experts from all over the world, right? And one of the biggest issues that I see here in Trinidad and Tobago, and not just Trinidad and Tobago, but across the Caribbean region, right, is because we have a lack of, how do I want to say this? We have a lack of experts in industries who create content that can be found. So we have a lot of experts in different industries, but for the most part, our quote unquote experts don't necessarily create content, number one. And two, even when they do create content, they might not create content that can be found, right? And what happens because of that is that we jump on Google or we jump on any search engine, and predominantly the information that we do get when we put into the search, that information is coming from another market, another country. And because every single country has their own rules, regulations, laws, their accessibility to tools, what work, what doesn't work, because that's all different all across every single market, what happens for us is because the majority of the information that we get on almost any industry is coming from outside of our own markets and outside of our own countries, because every country in the Caribbean is different. Again, own culture, own laws, regulations, yada, yada, yada. We are taken down the wrong path. So we in the Caribbean, we Google something, chances are we're not getting any localized information, and we get information from another market, and people don't always put that information into context. They just take it wholesale because 9 out of 10 times people are desperate for information. So they just take whatever they can get and they run with it. And then they don't realize that the information they got is not relevant to our market. And it's actually things that are going to, walk them down the wrong path and put them in even bigger problems. Perfect example the easiest and perfect example I give is when people are looking at building websites. So they'll jump on Google and they'll type in, easiest or best websites for products or easiest websites to build. And you might get Squarespace, you might get Wix, you might get Shopify. However, when you review those platforms, they all get great reviews on social media. They all get great reviews on YouTube or on Google. However, when you're reading or getting that information or watching videos from other people that are in different markets, and they're giving you this amazing review on, say, Squarespace, that platform doesn't integrate to any local payment gateway. So a Caribbean person taking a Squarespace is going to go down the wrong path unless they know that they got to go and register their business in the U.S., open up a U.S. bank account to be able to get to be able to get payment gateways that work with that, right? Or if they take a Shopify or they take a Wix, do you know what you need to get those platforms to work for you where in the country that you are in? So most people take the information that they see and they don't put it into context, which ends up damaging us, which ends up hurting us. People waste time, they spend their money, and they don't get nothing in return. And, some people, they never recover from that, right? So when we are looking at information from other markets, we really, really, really need to localize that information. But you can't, if you don't know better, then you don't have that perspective, and you won't be able to localize the information, all right? So it's a slippery slope. So the reason why this episode happened is because I was on LinkedIn yesterday, and a video came up, and there's a CEO / expert / marketing specialist that I follow a lot. And generally, I would say 80% of his information, maybe even a bit more. The only thing is that when I look at all of his content, I always have to put the information into a local context because he speaks with such definity that because his data, and I mean, he's running a big enterprise, a big company. So, he is speaking from what he knows, and he's speaking his truth, all right? And he is speaking the numbers that his company does and what they see, and all of that is fine and dandy. But the only thing that I quote unquote, I guess, don't like, or again, what I have to always put into context, is because he is speaking with such definity, like such a definitive way or definitive tone. He speaks as if this is what we are seeing. This is what is happening all across the world. And this is something that I've noticed since I've moved to the Caribbean, since I'm living in Trinidad now. We in North America, the U.S., Canada, we speak as if, okay, we are the top of the world, yes, and we are the pinnacle. And if it's happening here, it's happening everywhere else. Like, no regards for anybody else's culture, rules, regulations. It's happening here. That means it's happening everywhere else, right? So let me read to you this post. It's a video, but he has a caption that I can read just so you guys can get context. So when I watched the video and I read his breakdown, I was like, yo, I know that there would be Caribbean people, because a lot of Caribbean people follow him too. It's a guy by the name of Chris Walker, the CEO of Refine Labs. I know that when people follow him or read this, they would run with it. And they would run with it without putting what he is saying into context. And if you put it into context, you'd realize, bro, this is really only your market. This is like, you can't speak for every other market or culture around the world. Like, you really have to take a step back. But again, he would not know because he is in the U.S., right? And again, U.S., Canada, even UK, everybody kind of, when they speak, it's like, okay, we are the top. If it's happening here, it's happening everywhere else, right? So this is what his post said that inspired today's episode. He says, why search engines optimization and why search engine marketing is declining in less than 60 seconds. My goodness. He said, in 2013, where could I go to search? Google. In 2022, where can I go to search? He lists Google, LinkedIn, TikTok, Pinterest, Instagram, YouTube, Reddit, podcasts, Slack communities, and Discord. The reality is people trust their network a lot more than the results they get from a random blog in Google. So they are going to other places like LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, podcasts, YouTube, Slack, Discord communities, and more to get information on what initiatives to prioritize or products to purchase, who to follow, etc. An article talking about Gen Z, this article that talks about Gen Z that I've been watching, this has been happening with millennials and Gen Xers for the last 5 years. My goodness. This is just the beginning. Everyone does this because it's simply a better way to get information and make decisions. People are still making searches. They're just doing it in different places other than Google. If your primary marketing strategy is to still capture existing market demand through SEO or search engine marketing, you are vulnerable to slowed growth and declining market share. And he is talking about how one of the VPs of Google, I'm just pulling it up. Where is he? One of the VPs of Google, I'm going to butcher his name, Prabhakar Raghavan, who is a senior VP at Google. He was at a Fortune magazine event last week, and he cited that the company's internal research found that nearly half of young people in the U.S. use TikTok or Instagram instead of Google Maps or Google Search to get information, right? And those ages that they had surveyed for their internal research were people between the ages of 18 to 24, right? Now, they don't list how many people they looked at within the sample size, like where did that 40% come from and how many people were looked at. But it was enough to say we need to start reimagining our Google products. Hey, no problem. That is what a company does. A company is always going to look at what the data is telling them and make adjustments to get where they need to go. And I mean, people between the ages of 18 to 24, they're now leaving school or in some cases going into university. Some of them are getting into the workforce. And they're going to be getting their money. They're going to start getting spending power. So they need to start putting things in place to target that age group, right? So again, the most important thing is that they're noticing that happening in the U.S., right? Now, the article saying that in the U.S., 40% of Gen Zers are starting their journey on TikTok or Instagram. They visit the social apps to begin their customer journey. So NBC decided to interview. This is NBC, the network out in the States, right? They decided to interview some Gen Zers to get, their thoughts and see, what's going on with them. And the Gen Zers, people between the ages of 18 to 24 that they interviewed, said a couple of things like this. They made comments. One person made a comment and said, it's one thing to read about what to do in this area or how this product works, but it's another thing to see it. All right. So they're talking about, why they go to social media apps like TikTok or Instagram before they go to Google. So it's one thing to read about it what to do in this area or how this product works, but it's another thing to see it. All right, no problem. Another person said, me and my friends, all of us are around the same age group. All of us are around the same age group. We are visual learners, and with TikTok, it's quick and easy to see a video on something I want to know more about. Another person said, it's how I search for product recommendations, how to do things, where to go, even apartment tours. All very interesting statements. Again, this is from NBC interviewing a couple of people between the ages of 18 to 24, and these people live in the U.S. All right. Now, this is where culture comes in and plays a major, major role. Because guess what, folks? Here in the Caribbean, we know that social media is the number one spreader of all misinformation, drama, cyberbullying, or just downright mindless content. You will be hard-pressed to find individuals who are actually creating content that you can use in a way that's going to help you be better or to grow in a particular industry or to help you make a decision. Think about that. Think about all of the content that you see coming out of Caribbean people, not just content creators, but think about the majority of the or content that you see on any social media app in the Caribbean and how much of that is useful. How much of that is useful? Now, I remember a few months ago when I did the videos on Breeze, Unilever, right? Remember that? Remember that whole thing? Well, one of the videos I did, I did two videos. One of the videos I did was questioning Unilever's marketing strategies, right? Why do they go, if it's a low-end product or they're trying to make it as an affordable alternative, why do it in a high-end hotel like Bricks? Why not, go to the people where they're at, right? And the second video was directed to the influencers on why are they selling themselves out for free? Like, why are you guys going and giving these companies free promo? What is the point of that, right? Diluting your audience for what? All right. I asked a question. Why wouldn't Unilever find relevant influencers that fit what they are trying to do, or at least create campaigns that better use the influencers that they did decide to bring to the event? And one of the criticisms that I received from people was literally, where would Unilever get anybody who fit their industry? And how many people are even creating content for that industry? Mind blasting. And you know what? Hey, fair point. Fair point. Because even when that comment was brought up, right? It turned into a big discussion because it was like, yo, okay, let's just say they wanted to find people who were specializing in cleaning products. There was literally like one girl that came to mind. And her channel was, I don't even know her name, but I believe the premise of her channel was that she's a stay-at-home wife. So she is prepping, she does all the housework and she preps all of her husband's meals and does everything for the husband, and like what a housewife would do, right? Typically the housewife stuff, the chores, basically that is her channel. And what she would do is, again, I have not watched her content. I've seen, because I think she actually did she would do videos of her doing his laundry. So she had came to mind that some people were like, yo, she would have been a good person to say, hey, let her use this product to see how she cleans her husband's clothes, right? But outside of her, there was like nobody that came to mind. I'm not talking about me. I'm not talking about, who came to my mind. Nobody came to mind. But just reading comments, her channel was brought up. And then for the most part, nobody else could think of anybody else that this made sense for in terms of a content creator. Who else could they have, worked with who specialize in something? It could have been somebody doing appliance reviews. It could have been somebody reviewing soaps, something there was just nobody that came to mind that they could have used or worked with that specialize in anything around their area for them to make content on. So that was one of the big criticisms that I got. Like, okay, if you want Unilever to make content or use content creators that specialize within the space, who are they? Who are they? Right? In the Caribbean, most misinformation spreaders do not have websites. So they typically will use social media, right? They go to social media. Social media is easy. Create an account, start talking your mess. Websites are seen as official. Like if you have a website, that's official. Now, where does Google pull their information from to serve you? Remember, Google's just a platform. Google's a matchmaker. It looks for the information. It takes whatever you want, your question or your query, and it goes and finds the information. It pulls that from somewhere. So it pulls it typically from websites, or it pulls it from YouTube, or images on websites, or podcasts. It pulls that information, and it serves it up to you in the search results. Right? Google also pulls the usernames from accounts on social media. So it doesn't necessarily pull, I can't type in a question and it pulls up your individual Instagram video talking about it. It's going to pull up, if you have the title marketing manager, right? Or if it has your name, it'll pull up the usernames in the search results, right? So the reason why trust has declined for Gen Zers in the US is because institutions who have the budget and skill sets compete very hard to earn space on Google in the US. And sometimes that doesn't always serve up the information that people need without doing a lot of digging. They prefer to find their creators on social media and get their takes on everything. So that's why they turn to social media, right? Now, while this makes sense, that's not what's happening in the Caribbean. Since I think we can agree that 90% of the content Caribbean people make is more entertainment content and lifestyle content. So sure, you're going to get product reviews on lotion, body scrubs, you'll get product reviews on different things. You'll get restaurant reviews or food reviews. But even then, we take all of that with a grain of salt. Rather than companies spending money to build their own platforms and give out the information directly themselves, many of them prefer to purchase the influence of popular people on Instagram to give us biased reviews, because we know the influencers don't ever say anything bad. They don't want to jeopardize their money. And because of that, it has now begun to grow our mistrust in Caribbean creators themselves. And since they don't know any other way to earn money besides to have a day job or selling access to their audience, they work with as many brands as they possibly can, regardless of whether the product is good, bad, or whether they even use it or not, or use it consistently. And they sell access to the audience, and then the audience begins complaining that the product isn't good, and there begins the mistrust of content creators. Think about the big thing happening right now in Trinidad and Tobago with regards to Caribbean Airlines jetpack services. They did now for those of you not in Trinidad, jetpack is essentially a skybox service. So because we live in the Caribbean, most companies do not deliver directly to us, or it would take too long to deliver directly to us. So what a skybox is an address in the U.S. Typically, they are in Miami. These companies will receive, they're freight forwarders. They receive our packages on our behalf, and then they bring it into the country on a daily schedule. And then they deliver it to us or to our homes, right? So we have an address in Miami. We have all of our, Amazon orders, eBay orders, Walmart, all of our orders. We ship to our address in the U.S. The company collects it on our behalf, and they bring it they deliver it to our homes locally in our respective Caribbean countries. And Caribbean Airlines is the owner of planes, right? They own planes. So they launched their new jetpack service, and it was with major, major fanfare. Big launch event. The damn tagline was redefining skybox experiences. They then brought a bunch of influencers at the launch, and then they contracted a bunch of content creators / influencers to do their thing and make all this content and rave about how amazing the experience was. And the experience apparently was good for that initial time. At launch, people signed up. They got their products quick. And then guess what, folks? Then all the drama started, because after people's initial shipments, all of a sudden products started to take a month to come in. People's packages are getting lost. Caribbean Airlines, who had terrible customer service from before, where people barely even answer the phones for flights, now the jetpack division, people are not answering phones, people are not answering emails, people are taking videos that they are at Caribbean Airlines jetpack office, and they're there for 6 to 8 hours, and they're taking videos, time-stamped videos of them being there for hours on hours on hours. People's packages getting lost. And guess what? People have turned to social media to blast all of the influencers that were promoting the product and service. And they blast them because, again, you got paid. People take your word for it, and while you're not responsible for the actual service themselves, you are responsible for the companies you give your seal of approval to. You are responsible for who you give your seal of approval to. And what happens is, when you damage your credibility, everybody loses, because now it's more infuriating to the companies, because you have a large audience and you contributed to the influx of customers. Maybe their business was never meant to handle that many clients. Now, that's crazy to say, because Caribbean Airlines is a major, major international company. And if you're going to come out with all the fanfare redefining skybox experiences, skyboxes have been around for like 10 plus years in the Caribbean. And all of the companies that we use are typically, they work good. They work really good. So the fact that all of the other companies are working really good, people were expecting so much more, because, hey, if we were getting good to really good service with the other companies, and you guys are here talking about we own the planes, we're redefining the experience, then we're expecting great service. And maybe great could have only happened for a limited amount of people, but because you guys did all of the fanfare, all the promo, you guys dropped the ball, and ultimately people have gone to social media to just blast the influencers because they themselves are having problems with the products that they are recommending. And we're seeing it time and time and time again where Caribbean content creators or Caribbean influencers, you guys are taking paychecks for products that aren't good. Or maybe they were good for you, or maybe they are good for a small group of people, but they're not good for the masses. But companies are coming to you because you guys have a large following. And when they go in, they contract, a few of you influencers, you guys bring in an influx of people, they overload the company, and then the company can no longer handle that amount of volume. And then everybody gets a bad experience. You get a bad rap and you lose your credibility. You lose your credibility, right? Now, this goes back to why we still have a big trust in Google. So when you look at the data, Google is the number one most used platform in every single Caribbean country. It's the number one platform that we use, right? And that's the number one place we get all information. Now, we in the Caribbean trust Google because since there is a lack of information because most businesses or institutions don't have websites. When they do have a website, the information is typically rock solid because it's the company saying, hey, here's information about whatever we do. And you're getting it straight from the horse's mouth versus when you go to social media and you ask about a company, you're getting people's different perspectives and whatnot. And a lot of it is misinformation that is just going to, lead you down the wrong path, right? We know that when we do get the information, it's usually rock solid. We know that when we want to Google locations, guess what? We can pull it up and we're going to find you on maps and it's going to be where you are. If we want the contact information, like your phone number, your website information, again, we Google that because it's going to pop up on Google and we're going to get it directly from the actual business. Since no social media platform in the Caribbean also has e-commerce tools integrated, when we do actually want to place a purchase, when we want to shop online, we still need to visit a business's website to use our credit cards and order from your website because we can't click on product tags or make purchases on social media with local businesses. Remember, e-commerce tools are not available for Caribbean social media. And all of that points back as to why we in the Caribbean will still trust and use Google. We still have to go back to Google. Again, it's the place where we're going to get the most accurate information because it's coming directly from the companies. When we look at what's happening in the U.S., when we refer back to my guy Chris Walker talking about people place their trust in individuals versus the institutions, that is true for their market. But when we look at our market, we know that the majority of the information that we do get on companies from individuals, from content creators, is a bought and paid for opinion that is doing more harm than good nowadays. So for us, we're not just taking the word of a Caribbean content creator. They're good for awareness, sure. They're still good for awareness. Now we know about your product or business. That doesn't necessarily mean we trust your product or business. That doesn't necessarily mean we're going to purchase from your product or business. We would learn about it and we would still want to do research. We still want to do our own homework. So we're still going to Google to find that information out. And remember, if your business does have a website, if you are putting out information and it's coming directly from you, that ultimately is going to still build more trust. Because when we look around, when we're in the Caribbean and we're looking around, where can we get information? There's just such a lack of it that when a company does take the time to put their energy and effort into putting out information, we will trust that more, because I'll be damned, or we'll be damned, if the only information we are going to get is from a content creator who does not specialize in your industry. So they can't give a proper view in context, or give us information that we can make a decision on. We're not going to do it. So this is a plea for businesses to, hey, it's okay if you're going to use influencers. I mean, you still try to find alignment with the right people to speak about your products or services. But you need to really invest in your own platforms to put out your own information to build trust. Because if you're leaving it up to a journalist to write about you, if you're leaving it up to a content creator to put out information about you, our trust in those channels is degrading day by day by day. We barely trust journalists, and we we grow less and less and less trustful of content creators in the Caribbean. So this is why businesses need to start, especially in the Caribbean. The culture is different here. We aren't using platforms like Slack, Discord. Those are very, very niche for us. Slack, Discord, Reddit. Those are very, very niche for us. Heck, even Pinterest, niche. Very, very niche for us. We are going to Google, and the data shows it, because Google is still the number one website used across all Caribbean islands. We're still going to Google. So businesses, this is a plea to you to invest in your website, start putting out your information, put out your content that comes directly from you, get your products listed, your services listed, get your information out there, because people will trust it coming directly from you. And if you don't have your own platforms and all you're doing is relying on content creators, our trust is growing less and less with them, because even if your campaign with them might be good, they're also taking on all of these other brands. And the stuff that they're doing with them might not be good. So you think that people who are promoting Caribbean Jetpack, and they're getting raked online right now about what they're promoting, you think it's a good time for you to go and book those same creators to have them promote your products? It's not a good time for that. Their credibility is taking hits, and it's going to take even more and more hits in 2023. So brands, you need to be more intentional about who you work with, what information they're putting out. Start focusing on putting out your own information on your own platforms. Understand that Google is still the number one place that Caribbean people use for information. So go and be where they are looking. They are looking for your information, because right now when they Google, they're getting a lot of information from other markets that is hurting us because it's not put into our local context. You need to you businesses, you institutions need to start filling that gap. All right. So that is my episode today on how culture impacts your marketing, and why when you are reading content from other markets, you need to stop and take a step back and think about your market. Think about what is happening within your country, within your industries, within your market. And you're going to see that it's very different. And if you start to look at the data, it's going to look different for you too. I can tell you that Google is the number one place because I'm looking at the data. It's still the number one website that people visit in Trinidad, in Barbados, in Jamaica. All right. So that's it from me for today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know, did this episode make sense? You guys can jump in the comments, shoot me a DM, or shoot me an email. I'd love to know what your guys' thoughts on this episode was. Don't forget that if you are listening to the podcast on any of the platforms like on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, don't forget to rate the podcast. The ratings help grow the Digipreneur FM family. If you guys really enjoyed the podcast or have some feedback for me, drop a review. I love to read the reviews. The reviews help me, ensure that we keep the content relevant for you. The reviews also help people who are, on the fence. Maybe they found the title of the podcast and they're looking at it and they're looking at the reviews to see if it's something worth checking out. So drop a review. The reviews help grow the Digipreneur FM family as well. Also, follow me over on social media at Keron Rose, KeronRosc on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn, any of the social media platforms. Don't forget to check out the KeronRose.com website. Links are in the show notes to learn more about building your digital presence and monetizing your platforms. And check out the Digipreneur.fm website to stay up to date with the podcast. Don't forget, every single Thursday, the Digipreneur column is in the TT Newsday. Every week we got fresh new articles coming out in print and on their website. We share those across our platforms. And then every single Friday from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time, we got the Digital World Radio Show. You guys can tune in on Freedom 106.5 FM, or I share the link, and the link to watch the live stream is tbcnetwork.co. You guys can check that out, all right? That is it from me for this episode, folks, episode 110. I will see you in the next episode. Enjoy the rest of your week. Take care.
You've been listening to the Digiboss, Keron Rose. We hope your notepad was filled after this episode. Make sure to like, rate, and review the show. The learning doesn't stop, folks. And to make sure you don't miss any gems from the Digiboss, go over and follow him on all social media platforms at Keron Rose. Folks, don't just sit there with a notepad. We need you to implement at least one thing into your business before the next episode. That's the only way your business levels up. Thanks for listening to Digipreneur FM. Now go be great.